Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
She is for a fact.
Is that the sign the meeting's supposed to start?
I like it. That works.
Sorry, that's the cuckoo clock in my home office. I apologize about that.
I love your cuckoo clocks. They are the best.
It just says it's 8 o'clock. I mean, 9 o'clock. Okay. I was just looking to see, I don't see Commissioner Cheney. Is she on yet? And Commissioner Glenn.
Jim Glenn's here.
Okay. You on your cell phone. Okay. I got you.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Morning.
Good morning.
And I know Cheney is coming. We talked for a while yesterday, so
You heard from Rabbi Litman?
I have not. I think he might still be in Israel.
Okay. Well, let me call the meeting to order of the August 19, 2021 meeting of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. And the first item on the agenda is the application of the oath of office to our newest member. Okay, Terrence, you gonna handle that?
I will. Dr. Sarr or Dr. Clark Sarr. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
So I just need you to repeat after me and raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
or affirm, as the case may be,
or affirm as the case may be,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky,
and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully execute,
and that I will faithfully execute
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability
the office of Commissioner of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights,
the office of the Commissioner, the office of the Commissioner, what, say that, repeat one
of
more.
the Kentucky Commission
Of the
on,
Kentucky Human Rights,
according to law.
according to law.
And I do further solemnly swear or affirm
And I do further solemnly swear and affirm
that since the adoption of the present Constitution,
that since the adoption of the present Constitution,
I, being a citizen of this state,
I, being a citizen of this state,
have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state,
have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state,
nor out of it,
nor out of it,
nor have I accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons,
nor have I accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons,
nor have I acted as a second in carrying a challenge,
nor have I acted as a second in carrying the challenge,
nor aided or assisted any person thus offending.
nor aided or assisted any person thus offended.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sarr, Clark Sarr, welcome to the commission. We're glad to have you joining us. This is a very dynamic body that is doing some very good work and looking to do even better work. And I think what I like here is for you first to just tell us very shortly a little something about yourself. Then I'll let the commissioners introduce themselves.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit.
I said, just tell us a little something about yourself. Then I'll have the other commissioners introduce themselves.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, fellow commissioners. As they mentioned, I'm Doris Sarr. I currently reside in Murray, Kentucky. So I'm on the central time zone, which is an hour behind your time zone. I worked in higher education as an administrator for over 29 years. I retired early. I'm a professional grant writer, so currently I work from my home doing grant writing and consulting. I have one daughter who just moved to Madison, Wisconsin. She's working at the medical college there and going to medical school. And I'm just enjoying my life here in the great city of Murray, Kentucky. I also was an elected official here. I served on city council, and I also served on the Commission of Human Rights several years ago. So I'm coming back on the commission. So
Okay.
nice to meet everyone.
Well, thank you. Let me other commissioner introduce themselves. I'm gonna do it the way I see you on my screen, starting at the top. Commissioner Henry. You're still muted. There you go.
All right, good morning. excuse me, please. I'm suffering from allergies, so if my voice sounds raspy, please forgive me. I'm Bernice Henry from Ashland, Kentucky. And Dr. Sarr, I do remember you, and I remember you from years ago with Ashland Community College. Do you remember those days?
Oh, yeah, KBC Leo and everything.
Yes, KBC Leo. So I'm
And
very
KCHR.
pleased to hear that you're doing well. I'm retired also, and I'm new to this commission. So we'll both learn a lot of things together. So welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Commissioner Karama.
Good morning. My name is Devon Karama. I am the director of One Lexington in Lexington, Kentucky, as well as the founder of a youth nonprofit. And so I work primarily with young people. So it's good to have you on board. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Commissioner Fuentes.
Yes, good morning and welcome to the board. My name is Luis David Fuentes. I am a professional environmental engineer, now probably representing the Hispanic local community here for the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, and also publishing publication for the Hispanic community. Il Kentuano is the name. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stringer.
Good morning. I'm Tony Stringer. I'm a retired judge here in Jefferson County, Kentucky, in Louisville. I'm new to the board also, so I'll be learning a lot with everyone else. Welcome aboard, Dr. Clark Sarr. It'll be wonderful working with you. Before getting to the bench, I was a prosecutor for 14 years. I've been a public defender. I work with Dr. Smith at Simmons College now as an adjunct professor, and I've been an adjunct professor at Sullivan University also. So I have not been with the commission very long, but before coming here, I was a commissioner for the Human Relations Commission here in Louisville. So I'm familiar with some of the stuff that you do, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot more. So I'll work with you.
Okay, next is Commissioner Smith, who also serves as vice chair of the commission.
Thank you, Chair Burse, and welcome, and it's good to have you, Dr. Sarr. I am Frank Smith. I'm the founder and the senior pastor of Christ's Church for Our Community here in Louisville, serving in my 21st year. Also, I've served here at Simmons College of Kentucky for 15 years as executive vice president and special assistant to the president, and many other things we do here in this community, but we're excited about getting to know you, and welcome to this board.
Okay, thank you. Next is Commissioner Glenn.
Hello, this is Jim Glenn. Welcome, doctor. I worked with the community college for about 33 years. I just retired about 12 weeks ago. It's good having you on the commission. I used to be a city commissioner. I was a state representative. I have 2 children. They live in different parts of the country, but it's good having you on the commission, and I'm new also. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Worth.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm Rick Worth, and I am the Chief Executive Officer at Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, CH&K Behavioral Health. And that's located here in Northern Kentucky in the city of Covington, Devou Park. And I am fairly new myself. I've only been on the commission for a few months here. And so it's a pleasure to meet you, Doctor.
Okay, Commissioner Cheney.
Good morning, Dr. Clark Sarr, and welcome to the board, to the commission. I apologize for the background noise. We're having a huge thunderstorm, so I'll be very brief. I've spent a bit over 30 years as a community development practitioner, community and economic development, and this may sound a bit familiar. I retired, and now I have my own consulting company and continue to work with nonprofits across the state, particularly to advance the needs of persons of color, low-income folks and other disadvantaged populations. So welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you for that. And last, my name is Raymond Burst, and I serve as chair of the commission. I've been, I guess, on the commission since December of last year. Have done a variety of things over the years, practicing attorney, corporate lawyer, and also university president. And we look forward to having you on board and you joining us in the work that we do. So again, welcome to you. Next item is the confirmation of a quorum, and there's also confirmation of public notice. Terrence, we've confirmed both of those.
We do have a quorum and notice was sent.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public participation today? Or anyone signed up?
Not that we've been made aware.
Okay, so the next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the meeting held on June 17, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Make the motion.
Okay, so moved by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Stringer. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, those minutes are in fact approved. We go immediately to the sections report. The first up is the executive director's report.
Good morning, everyone. This will be more lengthy of the reports that we've done, but that's because we're hopefully going to have some good conversations about the last two items, especially. Since our last meeting, there have been no budgetary changes, but we do have a position update where we have our new staff attorney, Kristen Burkhold, who is on the call. Kristen previously worked at Clay Daniel Winter in Louisville, and she is immediately starting in our mediations, but also working with our older legal cases to help get us up to speed and to really make sure that we're able to finally put some more dedicated energy to some of those aged legal cases. So we just wanted to officially welcome Kristen. She started this past Monday, and so as luck would have it, her first week is also a commission week. So that was fun. Just as an update on where we were before Kristen joined, in the past month, we mediated around 13,000 in settlements. And now that we will have a more streamlined and dedicated part to mediations again, I think that will be more and a little higher for the people moving forward who have filed with us. I did want to highlight a few people this meeting. So we have a few people who are getting their years of service certificates for their long work with the state and mostly with this agency. So we have Brandon Ross and Glenda Stovall, who both are getting their 20 years of service this year. And they both are very dedicated to the agency and do a lot of work for us. And then Cynthia, I wanted to spotlight for multiple reasons. Cynthia is now getting her 30 years of service, but I also wanted to publicly thank Cynthia for all of her help in helping me and helping us control this mediation process as we were trying to replace the former staff attorney who retired. And so it's been a large lift trying to coordinate these, reach out to our complainants and respondents, making sure we fit timelines, keeping it updated. We had a table that we created to try to keep everything under control, but we also had to work on scheduling with the retired judges who were doing our mediations and trying to work scheduling with multiple adults and busy professionals while also responding to the needs of the multiple law firms and the multiple claimants and respondents. It's not easy and it's not fun. And Cynthia was very helpful to me in that. And so I just wanted to, show some appreciation for that hard work. And now she can thankfully step away from that. As Kristen has already learned, it's some work to it. It's a lot more than I thought it was. And it's a job in itself. So we are thankful for Cynthia and what she did. And so just wanted to show some appreciation. As far as our training and professional development, the enforcement staff and myself, we did our virtual EEOC conference towards the later end of July, which gave a lot of updates on investigatory practices. There were a lot of legal updates, especially around some of the recent Supreme Court decisions, executive orders, and in the legal update meetings that I went to, there was guidance on those things, as well as some of the challenges that people are facing with mandatory vaccinations, mandatory masking, those types of things, and how we can look at those types of issues from an agency, these types of agencies. And so that was really helpful information to learn. As far as professional development, next month, I'll start doing the yearly ethics officer training, and will be, I am now apparently after working with ethics, and we'll get back to some of my work with ethics, but our designated officer for the office for ethics and understanding what we do to make sure we're following the guidelines of executive ethics. So for outreach, most of that will be covered in the enforcement or the education and outreach section, but I did want to let you all know that I'm meeting with the mayor of Georgetown about their commission. I think it's next week or the week after. And I'm also doing a speaking engagement on our work and things to come with the Hopkinsville office. And then I didn't put this in the report, but one thing that I really hope happens in the next few months is to continue those conversations with the city of Madisonville that Commissioner Thomas was so passionate about, and helping set that up with the mayor. And I'm hoping that we're able to still have those conversations and make that dream that he always had happen. So that's something that's still on my mind and we'll still be working on. So starting with some more of the updates that are possibly going to garner some conversation. I spoke, especially when some of you were newer, about us really needing to work on our end-to-end tracking and streamlining functions, as well as making sure that we could look at our process and see where we had holdups and where we could make improvement. And I let you all know a few times that we were trying all of these programs. I know it probably felt like we were just spinning our wheels at times, because every commission meeting I said, okay, well, we're working on this and we're working on this. And to explain that a little more is we went through different programs looking at what things we knew we needed. And then we went through what options each of these programs presented, what challenges they may have had, what gaps they may have left. And we worked through our needs and what offerings were there. And so ultimately what won out was a program called Airtable. And if you're able to see, I sent a lot of screenshots just to talk about why we went with this specific program after trying to come to a consensus of what will work best. And so the first piece is we're able to take things from data that's entered into the form, like the form that gets filled out when someone files a complaint online, or someone taking a call can fill out a similar form in the program when they open it. And then what it does is once you put that information in, it then populates the database. So you don't have to completely recreate what was going on in the entry, and you don't have to duplicate efforts, because that's one thing that I want to try to get further away from is duplication of effort. That way we don't have people really just overdoing the same thing. So when you put something into this program, it populates the database, but it also creates a sustainable record for each case that's opened up. And what's important about creating that record is that the record follows that specific case ID throughout the system. So whenever it shifts from unit to unit, it still keeps that same case ID and record, but you can check and open it and see other things that have happened. So there you can include comments or tags to other people within the record. So if there are any questions or you might need more information, you're able to pull it without, you don't even have to reach out to someone all the time. You can just open the record and see what type of information was shared in there, if there were any documents or anything that was added to it. And so being able to log comments and documents in the database adds to one, quick access, but it also creates a singular location for storage of this type of information. So if someone were to call or reach out about a specific record or something about their case, we have it there. If something goes, once we need to upload some things into our federal databases for payment and for acceptance of our contracts, you can find a copy here. And so it makes it easier to get to what we need, but it also makes it where it's kept in a location where we know where things are. But the biggest reason that I think when we had our meetings on this, on what made this program specifically win out, was the ability to automate multiple functions. And what that means is we can have automation set to where you can say when X happens, Y then happens. And so, for example, and I'm working on building this out with each of the people, which I'll share later. But in building out the mediation tab, for example, when we can have an automation for when one of the parties declines to mediate, it then sends it to enforcement instead of a possible log jam while we're waiting to hear back. And then once we hear back, we then have to go back and change a couple things and then take it downstairs. With the automations, once you can set it to where once you click this, it goes here. So you can set a process where it knows what the next step is. And so it automates that action and sends it to the next person on the line. And so just in practical terms, what it does here is once cases are going through the process and once it is going to enforcement, it goes to Aaron immediately. And then Aaron can, in the program, tag any of the investigators to assign it and assign it within the program as well. So they immediately get a notification, but they also get access to that record I mentioned earlier that shows everything that has gone on with that case ID from that point, or from when it came in to the point where it got to them. And so they can pick up where someone else left off.
Terrence, are you sharing that or just your screen?
That is not my screen. I don't know who's screen sharing right now.
Okay.
So
it was me screen sharing from the commission book, just to show you, give an example.
it was showing the desktop.
Oh, well, that explains it.
So what this will do is it will help us streamline the process, but also help with case management, because we're able to now automate functions, but also see where everything is. But the plan is now working with each of the units to build out the program a little more to make sure everything is included that's needed, but also to look for weak spots, because I know that I personally don't know all the ins and outs of every intricacy of the different units. And so I can build it how I think it should work. And that's what I'm doing. But I also want to make sure the people that are doing those functions have the input to say, okay, this doesn't work, this does work. It would be better if we added this. And so that's the plan, is the rest of this month, I'm working with each of the different units to build it out and make sure that it fits the needs of what we're trying to make it accomplish, but also just making sure we get people bought into it. And once we have everything developed, I plan on having some training and collective work on us all learning the process. I worked at an organization in the past where we used this program exclusively. That was how we did all of our work. Any processing, any planning, all was done in this program. And what we did to get on board is we had classes, we did training as an office together, we did all staff training, and then we did unit and team specific training. And that's also what I intend to do here, is for everyone to learn it who is going to be utilizing it. Not everyone is going to use the program, but for those who will be using it, to make sure that we're all learning it and working through the process and making sure that everyone's up to speed. So that was the first larger update. I just wanted to make sure you all were aware, because we've talked about it in a few meetings, and I know I kept promising, okay, we're going to find something, we're going to find something. And so that was the result, is using that program. Just a few other updates before we get into the major discussion points is we were able to voucher for some of our EEOC funds because we were on progress with our cases being at a sufficient level to say that, okay, we know that you're doing well enough that you can go ahead and voucher for half of what you would be getting at the end of the year. And so we'll be able to do the remainder once we meet our contract, which we're actually on pace to exceed. This Monday, switching from employment to housing, we submitted our application for our partnership funding from HUD, and those funds can only be used for specific and pre-approved uses. But there is a pot of money that we're able to apply for that we can use to do some type of work in fair housing. And the anticipated use that was in the application was just to aid in some of our outreach in fair housing, but also to grow the reach of the agency. And if anyone has questions on that plan as the application stated, I'm happy to take some questions, or you can email me, or we can set up a side meeting to talk about it. But that was due on Monday, and now for the next 30 days, we'll be able to work with our HUD partners to see if that is a plan that they approve, or if there's something that we need to change. So the final idea or concept isn't done, but we just had to make sure we had a preliminary idea submitted and a statement of work submitted by Monday. And so that's what we did. As a follow-up to our last meeting, I worked with Commissioner Worth and Commissioner Cheney on some next steps relating to our conversation on child placement agencies. And we will circle back to that in new business with some updates from Commissioner Worth, but I did want to let you all know that we have been working together on some of that. We talked about the building proposals before, and the chair asked a question about where we were in the process, and I said that we were waiting to hear back. Since that time, we did hear back on all of the building proposals. They have all been submitted to the state, and preliminary floor designs have been shared with me for the final options. The way the process works now is that it shifts to the designers and the properties to come to an agreement on what the build out options look like, because the state has very specific specifications on what the floors look like, what the doors look like, how everything plays out. And so it's now up to the designers and the state and the properties all to work together to say, okay, this is what it would be, and this is the price we would charge to do that work for that build out. And then once they have a price for a proposal, that's when it comes back to us, and then we can have that conversation about moving forward. If anyone wants to see some of those floor plans and the properties, please reach out and we can set up a conversation to talk about it. The concept that we're going with is we're going to go down in square footage by about 4,500 square feet, which, paying price per square foot, we could have a cost savings while also getting into a more suitable but single floor space where we can all actually work together and not have this floor division where it's split, because now we can all work together. I've shared these plans with everyone in the office and wanted to solicit input from them. We went through them in our all staff meetings as they came to me. And so I showed the floor plans and the location, what the buildings look like, and the parking situation, where the bus lines and all of that sit. So we can, if anyone wants to follow up with me, we can discuss those. And I've also, I'll also be able to have more once those official plans are completed. So the two bigger things, I wanted to open a conversation, one, about how we as an office or as an agency take positions on policy topics, and to have a conversation on how we would take policy positions, but also set up conversations on topics for these meetings today. And I say that because in the last meeting and in this meeting, Commissioner Worth reached out about or brought up some issues that he was thinking about and that were on his mind. And then Commissioner Fuentes also reached out about topics, but he did it in a different way, where he reached out to Chair Burse, and then I followed up and we had a conversation that way. And so one thing I wanted to talk about was having a process for how we would discuss those types of official stances on matters that come up. And so how would we create, what do you all envision as the process for how we would take up policy positions, and how we would bring up things that you all had that you wanted to bring to the floor to have conversations on, or to have a resolution like we're going to discuss later today. So that's topic number one. And I didn't know, Chair Burse, if you wanted to stop there and talk about that, or if you wanted me to talk about both pieces and then we have a full discussion about both.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about the second piece as well?
Okay. And so the last thing, the other piece, is I wanted to run through an idea that was ruminating, and then I had some conversations with Commissioner Worth about some ideas, and I wanted to go over the concept with everyone. So we talked a few times about our not so secret funding issues, and having state budget cuts, and having not having the resources that we really need. And I looked into our purported ban on solicitation of gifts by fundraising, and I wanted to get opinions on what were some options that existed for us. And I did want to say that this is something that I need to own, that I did not do my own research when I started. I took the advice that I was given, and I was based on prior knowledge that I was told that we were under specific rules and restrictions that pertain to this office. And had I done my own research in the front, I would have been able to come to this conclusion a lot sooner. But I'm, now there's no, I wish it could have been sooner, but we're still going to go this way, hopefully. It turns out that the advisory opinion that I was given was one that was in effect for this office, but it also was the example cited in new legislation around regulations and gifts given to agencies in the state. And so when I worked with executive branch ethics on asking questions about how we could ethically raise money to help supplement some of our funding issues, I was directed to another piece, some legislation, but also just some guidance that was provided about any advisory opinion that was issued prior to 2017, which included the main one that was an advisory opinion issued to this office, which is what we had been operating under. There was a new piece of legislation in KRS 45A 097 that basically in its first subsection said that a governmental body may accept donations and gifts from persons or businesses to further the governmental body's mission or to benefit the Commonwealth. And so in that conversation and uncovering where that was and asking questions about what was permissible and what worked and what didn't, I had some further conversations about a plan to move forward on how we could actually raise money. And the way that this would work is to blindly accept donations utilizing a community foundation model. And how that works is the community foundation could create a donation account where that foundation could raise money, where individuals could say, we're donating money that you can distribute among the different funds within your purview. So whoever has accounts with you, or they can do direct donations to whatever the name of the community foundation fund we would establish would be. But that way, whenever we would get any receipts or understanding of what the ledgers say or what is in that account, we can set it up in the agreement to never see the names of who donated or who was part of that process. We would just know that we have the Human Rights Fund account that has $20 million in it. And so we would not know who all was part of that. So to prevent any perception of wrongdoing or any perception that we might favor someone in a future action because they donated, we would not know who donated. And so we could be able to blindly take what those donations were. We would also need to set up a separate account with the state that we would then be able to transfer money from that over to. And the way that process works is we would have to, in the agreement, set up a protocol that's signed that says this is how money transfers from the fund account to whatever that new state account is. And the method that they prefer to use at the community foundation is to have 2 levels of authorization for all transactions. And so the general way that it's set up in a lot of the other organizations that have these funds is the executive director or the CEO is one of the signatories, but then the other would be the chair of whatever that board is for that company or agency or whatever. And so there's no transfer without the 2 levels of authorization. So be it $5, be it $500,000, there can't be anything shifted over unless both of those are signed off upon. There's also been in looking at the other practices of other places that have set up accounts with these community foundations, there's also an option of establishing a subcommittee of some sort to monitor and discuss the accounts and planning for what to do. And so that's a way to also create some governance structure around that. And so I'm happy to answer any questions I can. And if I can't, I can follow up with you on an answer of how some of that works. And similar to when we talked about the building, anyone who wants to have a longer conversation outside of this broader meeting for time, we can find some time and either talk through on the phone or meet up or whatever. But this is just something I really wanted to have a conversation around because it's a really optimistic development as an option that we want to use to really shore up some of the deficiencies in resources because of our funding challenges. And so now we can, I guess, go into the conversation around these things with questions and thoughts and all of that.
Sure. I have one question, Terrence. As far as you had mentioned the funding and and kind of building the structure in a way that we can't see the donations coming in, right? Like we don't know who it's coming from.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that also create a challenge as far as maybe just accountability, as far as maybe donations coming from a certain person or organization that might compromise the integrity of what we're trying to do? How would we, I guess, kind of monitor that on the other end? If we can't see it, does that mean the public or other people won't be able to see who's donating?
So we can, and that's in the development of the partnership, we can dictate what level of information is shared on donors to whatever level we want. On the front, on one end of your question, and maybe I misheard it, is the perception or any conflict with who is donating. That's the benefit of it being blind to us, is we still can't, we still won't know depending on how we want to do it. So it doesn't look any direction on us. There is also no prohibition on companies if they wanted to say, well, we've donated X, Y, and Z, and some of it went to this human rights fund. And we also have the ability to, if we wanted, we can refuse a donation through that partnership. We could say, okay, well, we don't want it from this place. We could set up the parameters of who or what types of entities can donate. It's all the part of a community foundation model that I really appreciate is it's all in the details, and we can decide what it looks like. We can draw it to our specifications, and so we can set it up in the manner that works best for us and for the agency. And so if there are any safeguards that we think we need to add, or some limitations on who can do what, or limitations on amounts or any of that, we can put it in the agreement, because the option that we would be looking at would be a direct fund. And so it wouldn't be, we wouldn't, unless you all thought we should, but we wouldn't do one that was also contingent on investing and all of that. We could do more of a direct fund where it's just what's been donated to that fund. And that way we could also add some whatever restrictions that we wish. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. And I also wanted everyone to know, there was an article that came out about some of the top 8, was it the top 8 underground artists in the world?
Yep. Top 8 underground lyricists in the world.
You were on it, and it was well deserved.
I appreciate that, man.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioner? And while let's just continue on the issue of the funding and the community foundation. Let's focus if there are questions specifically related to that.
Chairman, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just want to applaud Terrence. I mean, I have to start that way, given the fact that you're so understaffed, and with the challenges and all the transitions from buildings to new uses of IT in the department. You've just done a rock star job of investigating new possibilities such as this community fund approach. I can share this with you. As CEO at Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, utilization of these community funds have been really positive for us. So we have a community fund established with Greater Cincinnati Foundation. We just established one with the Northern Kentucky Horizons Community Foundation. And we are starting our third one. We'll be in process with that with the Greater Louisville Foundation. And just to reiterate the discussion between Terrence and Commissioner Karama, these things can be custom designed the way you want them to be funded. You can have the funds going into an endowed account or a non-endowed account. At Children's Home, for example, we select the level of reporting we get. We have about $1 million that have been added to our Greater Cincinnati Foundation account. Sometimes I know who the donors are, sometimes I'm not aware of who they are. There is a distribution plan that we get annually, depending on how the donors have set it up. But it's just been a really effective tool that requires minimal effort. The good thing about these community foundations is they help get our work on the proper radar screens. I know for a fact that there have been people that I had that were simply not on my radar screen who have been interested in the work of taking care of abused and neglected kids. I'm convinced that there are those populations out there who, if they knew about the work of the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, would be motivated to assist us, and they can do that. But certainly, the landscape is ripe for this approach, given the tax credits that are available to Kentuckians who contribute to these community foundations. There have been so many Kentuckians who have been interested in tapping into that tax credit up to, I think it's $100,000 available that they can contribute annually. So that has been for high net worth individuals. That's just been a real positive for Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, and I'm convinced it will be for the Kentucky Human Rights Commission. Terrence, I guess the only question I have is, have you given any consideration to how many community foundations you might want to consider, or have we not gotten that far?
So first off, thank you for how you started your comments. And this conversation was definitely aided and assisted by you and bringing up the concept. And I did want to also point out that with this community foundation model, another benefit is, I don't know how many of you are aware, but this agency used to have a full communications department with a few people that were focused on getting the image out there and all of that, and kind of getting that press, I guess. And one benefit of this community model, and especially in one of the community foundations that we talk to, is they have a strategy and engagement person who would be working on raising money and advertising on our behalf and setting up planning on how we can bring people in. And we don't have to do anything if we don't want to. It's a good way to kind of grow the brand. We can do strategic planning with them on what we want it to look like, and then they can take some of that work off of our hands in helping facilitate ideas for fundraising and all of that, which also removes us from that aspect, which also takes away some of that potential for any conflict. To answer your question, the idea for this coming year was to start with two in two of the larger areas in Kentucky, or that had the reach that we would want, but also had some of the interested and invested partners from the start. And so we would look for two regionally or within the state, and then based on our development with that, we could then expand outward and add more. But the concept now is to start with two and then move out and see about touching other areas of Kentucky, because as we know, people like to give where they know, and some people might give to a foundation that's based in Western Kentucky, but they might be just as inclined to give to someone doing work in Louisville, but they're not going to give to that community foundation in Louisville because they don't know them, but they know the Western Kentucky Community Foundation. And so the concept right now would be to start out with two, and then move forward on what we're doing and kind of see how it goes. I have had conversations with one area, And then next Tuesday, I believe, I have, oh no, it's Friday. I have another conversation about a different area that would work together. And these community foundations, they do have relationships. And so that would also help in growing the reach. But to answer your question, my concept is starting with 2 and then expanding out once we get our feet planted.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Vice Chair Smith has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair Burris. And this is a tremendous concept, fundraising. I just was thinking in my head of a few things to mention to go into it, that I don't know what kind of conflict of interest, things that we could watch for as it relates to the nature of our work and who the donors might be, and how the community, the respective community foundations would watch for that on our behalf, if that's an issue. The second thing that I wanted to mention is, are there any other state organizations similar to us that are using this model? And how is that working? Third, I wanted to make sure that some gratitude would be expressed to the donors, and that being, I guess, done strictly by the respective community foundations without our knowledge, so that we can always have plausible deniability of those gifts. And then I also wanted to, I think we should stress that these are unrestricted gifts, and that the donors who would give, they would have an understanding. So basically wondered if there could be like a waiver sheet, if you're giving to the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights, they're bulleted items so that the donor knows that they are protected in their giving, but also we cannot ever be expected to act in any way in their benefit if we have to work objectively in our work, should there be any cases, etc. And then I guess finally, and as it would relate to our federal dollars and the federal statutes of HUD and the other entities that are associated with us, just wanted to be sure that we are not crossing over a line in any way in those areas, as it would relate to this commission. And I'm just, these are things that just hit my mind, and I just wanted to express it. But I'm certainly in support of these fundraising efforts, just so that the necessary pieces are in place, so that whether there is an audit done of the foundation, what have you, that we are not brought into any issues as the commission.
So a couple things. And when you said a couple questions, I didn't anticipate 6, but we'll go with it. I did want to start with the last piece. So just a clarification. We are not, and I don't know if you meant it this way, and I don't think you did, but I just wanted to clarify for anyone who is watching. We're not doing a foundation of any sort. That was one of the options, was to open a foundation similar to one that the commission has had in the past, and then having the foundation have an account. And that was a hard no from me, just to make sure that we're keeping this separation as much as possible. We're not going to create a foundation. We need to make sure that we have something that's created within that community foundation that's already established, and that they then have their own already established protocols, their own governance structures, their own audits, because I think, and Commissioner Worth, you can correct me if I'm wrong with the one that we had a conversation with, but I think they have an audit every year. And so just to make sure everything is up on the up and up there, they do an external audit every year. To your question on the federal dollars and making sure we're not crossing over a line, this is a conversation. The federal dollars aren't at issue in this. I was having conversations with Brandon about how the state would view how we would do this and what it might mean for our state appropriation and all of that. And there are things to work through on that. And generally what we would have to do is, and Brandon can jump in if I'm saying it wrong, because I probably will, but we will need to get, whenever we have this money in that new account, we would need to basically ask permission to transfer it over for use. And so that is another process and a bridge we'd have to cross when we got there. But it doesn't, to your question, as far as crossing a line with our federal dollars, I'll be completely honest. I've had a few not great conversations with HUD lately, and one of their questions or issues that they've expressed to me is, why aren't we doing more to bring in money so that we can hire more people to work on their stuff? That's the genesis of their comments. I've had 3 calls this week so far with them where they're like, well, what are you going to do to make sure you can get more people to do housing? And so that's one of the, that this might help with the perception on their end that we're trying to do more to make sure that we show fidelity to what they want to happen. So on your question, your point on the gifts and a waiver sheet to KCHR, again, and as Commissioner Worth said, and to Commissioner Karama's question, we can set this up how we want. One thing that I did want to share is in the partnership agreement, when you sign it, you can make specific purposes that you would be using the funds for. That's part of the setup of the partnership, is to say, well, we're raising money for, we could say, I mean, you're a pastor, you know all about the building fund. We could say that we're raising money for X, Y, and Z, and that's why this foundation account is established. I did want to make one point of clarification on your question there. People would not be donating money to KCHR, because that's not necessarily what we would want to do, but they'd be donating to whatever that community foundation fund is, and not KCHR. It just has a partnership to where we would receive whatever was donated to whatever that account was set up with that community foundation. That way it's set up as something separate, but it also, you can't then in turn expect something in return from an agency that's not doing anything. I don't expect anything from my bank account when I put money into it, because it then goes to whatever my bills are, but I don't have that same, there's no connection there that follows with it. So we can have it set up where we have a very outlined use of funds, because that's part of setting up the partnership agreement. But there is, and we can have whatever types of waivers, or not waivers, but some disclaimers on donations when people, so people know when they're donating what it means. As far as your point on gratitude, showing gratitude to donors, that's one of those things that I think is really important as well. And that's why I wanted to bring up the person who would be working on behalf of the fundraising and the image side of it, is they would be able to show or express gratitude on behalf of that foundation and whatever that partnership fund was, saying, thank you for your donation or whatever. But they also they're thinking of who we've talked to so far. There are newsletters that go out to show like the work that's happened because of the donations. kind of highlighting to donors and people who are members saying, look at what you've done. You've helped donate to these causes that have then in turn done this work. So that's one way that gratitude can be expressed, but there's also the concept of having, and this is in some of the preliminary conversations, another way, which is showing gratitude, but also building out the potential for more fundraising, is you could have, or someone independently could host events to fundraise or celebrate that community foundation fund. That could be a celebration of the 2021 donors, to have an event, which might also magically have a donation option for people attending that event. And those are the things that we won't necessarily have to worry about, but the people who are managing it can help strategize around doing and then implementing and moving forward. And so I think that also goes into the conflict of interest provisions that you were asking about, because again, we can set it up to look and feel how we feel comfortable. And that's the beauty of using that model, is we don't have to fit into some prescribed box, but we can shape what we think is necessary for our purposes. And then the last question was if there are other state offices doing this. From the people that we've talked to so far, there have been some government offices doing it, not state agencies. But the group that I spoke to most recently, they've only been in existence for a few years. And so they don't necessarily have that same connection. The people I'm talking to next Friday, they've been in operation for, I think, 40 years. And I'd have a better answer to that question next week, because I would imagine that if someone has, then it would be with them. And so that would be a question I can follow up on, but I did ask specifically about state offices and government offices. And there have been some governmental offices that have utilized this approach to supplement paying for workers.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay. And I think some of the questions I had, Commissioner Smith has answered. I think that in terms of today's presentation is really a concept and an idea for people to hear and discuss. And I think the best way to proceed going forward is the establishment of a committee to work with Terrence in regards to this particular concept in terms of fleshing out some more of the details around this in terms of where it is. One of my biggest concerns is that and Commissioner Glenn, who was in the state legislature, understands all too well how legislators want to have control and all of that in terms of where state funds go and how it is done as a state agency, even though we're maybe working with a private foundation. They would like to extend that reach. All you need to do is look at universities across the state and see where that takes place. So I think what I would like to do with Yo's concurrence is to set up a committee to work on this with parents in terms of fleshing it out and bringing back something in more detail that we can look at before we can say yes, yeah, or nay in terms of going forward. So what I would like is for Commissioner Worth to chair a committee that includes him, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Glenn, and Commissioner Henry to work on this concept in terms of with Terrence to flesh that out. What's your reaction, thoughts, or any of those things? Any objections to doing that in terms of us proceeding?
I have none.
Okay. So
Jim
here,
Glenn, I have none.
okay, thank you all for that. So that's the way we will proceed with that particular idea. The first concept that Terrence was talking about, really around policies, how we would like to proceed from a policy standpoint to take positions and to do things. I've looked at our bylaws of the commission, which were originally adopted in 1966 and then revised in 2013, talked specifically to policy studies, policies, and how those are developing. It really places the burden on the executive director to bring that forward. But I think those bylaws need a set of fresh eyes and new revisions in which we can, in fact, address the policy issues more clearly. And again, a special committee to looking at that. And I would ask that Tony Judge Stringer, given her background, chair that committee in terms of looking at that document. And I'm asking Commissioner Cheney to serve with her. Also, Commissioner Sarr. When I look back at these old bylaws, Commissioner Sarr, I find that your signature is on it, and you were there before in terms of working through it. So you bring historical knowledge to it as well. Those are the three people to work with Terrence in terms of that and the policy. Any questions regarding that or reactions from anybody? Okay, well, thank you all. So Terrence, that's how we will go forward in regards to those two items. Looking forward to get periodic reports back to the commission so as to be able to move forward and get some things really done. And particularly when looking at those bylaws, getting those restructures so as to say how policies are derived and how they're directed and how they come forward.
All right, thank you. And thanks, everybody. I didn't mean to talk for an hour and 7 minutes.
Well, the work of the commission is important. It was a very short time in the life of the commission, and we appreciate you being innovative, reaching out and doing the things you need to do, and to be creative in the environment within which we have to operate, but also always moving the agenda of the commission forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to raise with the commission as part of your report?
I think that is all.
Well, thank you for that. Next item is the budget and personnel. Brandon Ross.
You have my report before you. Once again, I'd like to say congratulations to Cynthia and Glenda for their service. 30 years with state government is no small task. So congratulations, Cynthia. Are there any questions?
Okay, hearing none, next one is to move to the enforcement unit report. Aaron Spalding.
Hello, everyone. You all have my report and the cases in front of you. If y'all have any questions, just let me know.
Aaron,
Yes.
any questions for Aaron from any of the commission before I go? Okay, I guess I got a question regarding 9053 ET, which is on page 167 of the commission book. And reading through that, the recommendation is to find for no probable cause as it relates to that particular case. Given my reading of it, why didn't we not just dismiss it without prejudice as opposed to it going all the way to a finding of no cause?
We only do the dismissal without prejudice in administrative closures or cases where we can't come to a determination. Because if we do a dismissal without prejudice, that allows them to bring forth that claim again somewhere else. So if we've completed the investigation and made a determination of no probable cause, that's how we close those.
Well, I guess when I look at the write-up in terms of where it is, and because we didn't get all the information in terms of where we are, is I guess I'm still somewhat troubled or concerned in terms of you come to a totally complete stop in terms of communicating, in terms of where it is, communicating with the attorney. And so all of the facts, or at least some very significant facts, were never really discovered into the case. And so to say no probable cause, it's just a question with me.
Yeah, usually in cases where the complainant stops responding, we do those as MPC. Now, if it's a respondent that we can't get an answer to because the business has been closed down or something like that, then we will do those as administrative closures, as dismissal without prejudice. But when the complainant stops communicating with us, we do reach out. In this case, the complainant even had attorney. We send certified letters letting them know if you don't contact us, we're going to be closing your case. And like I said, in this case, the complainant also had an attorney. But we do close. There may be some where like a respondent stopped responding or the business became defunct and is no longer in business, and we will do those as administrative closures.
So and my next one is 9165E, which was an employment case in which I guess from the write-up is not clear in terms of the timing of when the respondent started the termination action versus when the complainant complained and brought it to it. And I guess, having seen cases where I guess with the courts now, when you have not mixed message, but cases with mixed issues like that, at least the federal courts have had a tendency to lean over and in fact find that raise the question of subterfuge and have allowed things to proceed. And here we just come to the conclusion, no probable cause with no discussion around the subterfuge.
Okay, this was a case that actually, the 9165, that was a case that we actually had legal help on this one too. Colt helped us with this one. And what this one found is the lady was a nurse, but what she was doing was she was entering patients' vital statistics prior to the patient even showing up. So she was entering false vitals in patients' medical records, which was why she was terminated.
Yeah, I understand what is written there. I guess I still raise the question about the duality of or at least the timing of when the two was coming, and I guess really in terms of how courts looked at subterfuge in spite of performance issues or issues like that in terms of individuals who are in fact terminated at the same time that they're bringing complaints. And the question is again, in terms of the subterfuge, I understand what the facts are. I guess I just question whether we consider that in terms of our analysis and discussion in investigation of those facts.
Yes, I think I know. Yes. In each case, we create like timelines so we can look and really look at like when those issues with employers started and when they began the process. I think this lady was put on a 30-day review and a 60-day review. So those reviews started before the termination process. So we will look at that stuff to see, because sometimes the termination and the discipline, and the action is a little bit together. So yes, we do look at all of that when we investigate and when we discuss with our legal unit as well. Timelines are pretty big.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But just know that because I've known a number of employers who've had issues and gone into federal court and mixed cases like that, employers have lost, is in terms of how, at least in the Eastern District of Kentucky, how they are now applying that subterfuge analysis. So let's be aware.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cheney.
Yes, I wanted to ask for clarification on case number 9023E. It appears that there were folks were held to varying levels of accountability based on their work classification. Aaron, can you help me understand that particular case?
This particular case was a white female team lead. So she was in a mid-level supervisory position as the team lead, and she used a racial slur when responding to 2 Black employees that worked underneath of her. And she was terminated for that. The comparable that she said when she said that there was others that used racial slurs that were not terminated, the other employee she used as a comparable was not a comparable because he was not in a supervisory position. And when he used the words in greeting his friends, he was a biracial male and used the N-word when greeting his friends. They did discipline him and put him on a final written warning, but she was held to a higher standard because she was in a management position.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. It was a little hard for me to glean quite all of that from the summary. The other one I wanted to ask about was 9127E. This is the one in which there were 2 African-American temp workers. And I guess my question there is it just sort of trailed off without any, I guess, clear resolution. In this particular case, they were terminated by the temp agency, and there really wasn't anything that, I guess, brought this to a close in my mind in terms of, even though the complaint was against I assume it's a factory and not the temp agency. I mean, did y'all look into potential patterns of racial discrimination within the temp agency itself?
I could have Wanda Melvin. She was the investigator on this case. Wanda, are you with us? Hold on 1 second. Let me give her a ring.
Okay, I'm here. Hello? We still can't hear me?
We can hear you, Wanda.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm here. The question? Good morning.
I think Commissioner Cheney would like some clarification on 9127.
Yeah. Your question, Commissioner Cheney?
Well, the 2 temp employees in question, the respondent was not their employer. The temp agency was their employer. And in reading that case, it said that they were told to report back to work after there may or may not have been some sort of verbal whatever, but when they did report back to work, they were told that their assignment was terminated. And it just sort of stops there. There's no resolution, there's a summary as to whether or not, we looked at potential patterns of discrimination within the temp agency and its assignments.
Okay, no, I did not look into if there was a pattern, and you are correct. There was really no resolution from Avado, the temp agency that the complaints were assigned to, because all the individuals who were involved with the incident were no longer working with the respondent. So I couldn't get any information from Avado. Through Kelly Services, which was another contract employee, contract employer, they were the individuals who told the complainants that Avado had terminated their assignment. And so what I got from both of the complainants was there was some type of altercation about one of the complainants' jackets. And then this is when the temp agencies asked for them to be removed. But I was unable to speak to anybody at Avado because the employees that I needed to speak to were no longer employed. So I just had to go on what the complainants told me and dismiss it because they are ultimately, they are the individuals that have to prove their case.
Okay, I guess, but my question, I guess, is that if they were temp workers at and I assume it's a factory, then the factory was not their direct employer. And so I guess I came away from that with two questions. One, what is the prior treatment of persons of color at the factory itself? And what is the treatment of persons of color at the temp agency? So,
Mr. Cheney, I don't look into that unless the complainant alleges that there is a pattern of practice. So I didn't look into that issue. One, I couldn't get any information anyway from any of the employees about what occurred other than the complainants.
But there are two cases that follow that, 9129E and 9130E,
right,
which are against the temp agency itself, right?
Yeah, the temp agency itself did not terminate the complainants. They were not terminated by them. The complaints both were written the same way where they shouldn't have been written the same way. But the actual employer was the temp agency of both the complainants, and they did not terminate them.
they ended their assignment at that particular factory.
Excuse me?
They ended their assignment at that particular factory and reassigned them. Is that what happened?
Avado ended their assignment. The employer, which was the temp agency for the complainants, did not end their assignments. They offered them other assignments and they declined to accept them.
Were the other assignments comparable?
What do you mean they were comparable? Oh, yes, they were comparable. The only reason why the one individual told me she wouldn't accept it is because it was further away from her, from where she lived. And then the other complainant told me that she would be earning $1 less than what she earned at Avado.
Note that what you just said is not written up in the summary.
No, I didn't put that in the summary.
I think that's a very pertinent point.
It may be in the rest of the CRC chair bears. I don't know because I don't have it before me. I may have put that in there that they did offer them other employment, the temp agency who will actually employ them.
Are there any other questions on the enforcement unit report? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve and accept the enforcement unit recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Judge Stringer, seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion itself? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed? Motion carries and the enforcement report is approved and accepted.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the Education and Outreach Unit report. Ms. Taylor.
Good morning. Welcome back, Commissioner Sarr. I know you've been doing a lot of traveling. I'm glad you're able to be with us. You have the Education Outreach / Intake report. It's a little longer than usual because I know that being new, some of you still want to know who and where the local commissions are. So we added that into the report this time. And on the cover sheet of the report, you can actually see all the cities and counties that have a fairness ordinance. And you can see the cities and counties that also have adopted the Uniform Realtor Landlord Tenant Act. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, you guys have a wonderful day.
Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none. Next is legal unit report.
Good morning. I provided my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
On page, let me find, I think it's page 56 of the commission's case.
Yeah, could you provide the case number for me, please? I'm looking at my copy of the report.
Yeah, let me get to the page.
Sure.
It's 9258E. In which it was stated, I guess the last update was the May commission. I don't remember that coming. Is that case still out there?
I don't see it on my report. What's the style of that case?
Sanford Rachel versus Kentucky Dermatology and Cosmetic Specialties.
That's on. I'm not familiar with that case whatsoever. I'm not sure that's been on a legal unit report.
Yeah, it's listed there. Okay. I'll follow up with it after the meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with
okay.
that.
Any questions for the legal unit? Hearing none, we have no committee reports, and so we'll go to new business. And first item is the Child Placement Agency follow-up that we started talking about at our, I guess it would have been June meeting. And so Commissioner Works is going to give us an update on that. And I think we're also going to discuss how to, something that we may do as a commission in terms of getting a position stated. Commissioner Worth.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman Burse. And I appreciate the help that Terrence and Commissioner Cheney have been providing on this as well. As you remember, I had broached this topic at the last commission meeting because of a concern that I had that maybe there was a voice that needed to be heard from the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, specifically in a younger population, namely the child welfare population in Kentucky. There was one particular agency back in May of this month and in June of this year, I should say, that made national headlines because it refused to sign a state contract as a private child caring provider, private child caring center for Kentucky. And it refused to sign the contract because of anti-discrimination language that the Cabinet for Health and Family Services was not willing to back away from. And so that's what got this conversation going. That situation made national news with the Associated Press, with CNN, made the front pages of the papers in Lexington and Louisville. And so as a result of that, I was hoping that the commission might weigh in on the importance of providing culturally competent care in all of our child welfare providers throughout the state to make sure that the country and that the Commonwealth understood that children's homes around the state did not share that particular approach to care that one particular children's home was espousing. And so since that time, what I was able to do, and Terrence and Commissioner Cheney were gracious enough to be a part of these conversations, I reached out to about 6 other children's homes, the largest ones in the state, to see if they would be willing to take some next steps on putting a message out around the importance of culturally competent care. So the reason why that's so important is because Kentucky leads the nation. We have been in the top 10 for the last decade in terms of the number of child fatalities and near fatalities, the number of kids who are in out-of-home care as a percentage of the population. We have actually been number 1 in the country for the last 3 years in terms of child abuse and child neglect statistics. And to make matters maybe more pertinent for this body, there's a disproportionate number of persons of color that make up those kids who are in out-of-home care. And there's a disproportionate number of LGBTQ kids who constitute an out of proportion representation in that population. So what I've been working on since our last meeting is to have several discussions with these other children's homes to see if they would be willing to be certified with the National Human Rights Campaign Foundation. That's the largest advocacy group of LGBTQ causes in the country. We have since held a question and answer session with those children's homes directly with the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. And those children's homes now are working with their boards to inquire about permission to move ahead with certification with a particular program called All Children, All Families. That particular All Children, All Families program is sponsored by the National Human Rights Campaign Foundation, and it simply works around 10 arenas of to make sure that those children's homes are in fact culturally competent in the arenas of HR, documentation, client care, making sure that minority populations understand how they might be able to foster children and are welcomed to come to those agencies to participate in a foster program. And so that's where we stand right now. I'm working on trying to get a follow-up conversation scheduled next week to see where those particular agencies stand with their boards, empowering them to pursue this this certification. My hope is where I want to end up is that possibly by next June. So I'm picking that time frame out because June is typically celebrated as LGBTQ Pride Month in most of the country. And my hope was to have those children's homes aligned and well on their way towards certification and possibly having some type of recognition from the Kentucky Human Rights Commission. My hope was to have representatives of the National Human Rights Campaign come down to Kentucky. They have never, for example, released an annual report from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And in some of my conversations with the national leadership of HRC, they are toying with the idea of releasing their annual report from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And so that would obviously, I think, send some really positive messages throughout the country around the fact that this one particular children's home does not represent an approach to care specific to LGBTQ employees and children in its care. So in addition to that, I was hoping that we could convince the governor, the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, and the national HRC to converge for a celebration of diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So that's my report on that. Terrence, I may be leaving something out, so I'll appeal to you if I'm forgetting anything, or Commissioner Cheney, thank you as well for joining some of those conversations.
No, I think you covered everything. I did want to applaud all the effort you put into that. I feel like there have been so many conversations started on that, and just some recognition that was expanded community-wide about what people represent, and getting some of these other agencies to come out and say this is where we are, and we are supportive of all children and all families. And I think it will be it will be a statement to see so many agencies in Kentucky going for that certification. And I guess, go ahead.
Terrence, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I did send you, I mean, obviously in this part of the state, the Cincinnati Enquirer is a big publication. I know you do a great job of collecting clippings from the Courier Journal and the Lexington Herald. But it might be of interest to share with the commissioners a recent article that I shared with you from the Cincinnati Enquirer, and it specifically dealt with the issue of LGBTQ kids, especially during this pandemic moment, who sometimes struggle to find culturally competent mental health care providers. And for those who might say, well, just, if somebody is gay or lesbian, let them go to another children's home or let them go to another mental health provider. That's not always easy throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Some areas of the state do not have a plethora of mental health care providers. So it's not just like, well, I'll go next door to someone who has a more open approach to these matters. So the issue around these issues, I think it's extremely important, especially given the moment that we're in, and our public school partners demonstrating, our pediatricians are demonstrating that there's an increased demand for mental health care services for young people. I'm fully aware of the fact that when schools resume their normal schedules, we are going to see a tsunami of referrals to places like Children's Home of Northern Kentucky and other welfare providers because of underreported child abuse, child neglect, and other serious mental health issues. I just want to make sure that the providers in Kentucky have an opportunity to move in the right direction in terms of being truly a safe place for all of its clients and customers.
I'll forward that out after this meeting ends so everyone can see what you shared.
I appreciate that.
You're on mute, Chair.
I was one on mute. I think, okay. Anything to add, Commissioner Cheney?
No, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the conversation, and Rick's leadership is pretty amazing, and the other agencies are equally appreciative of his leadership on this issue, and I think several of them will participate.
So if I can summarize, I think what we're pointing towards is a celebration in June of next year, at which time we will celebrate the agencies that have received the certification, and I guess the National Human Rights Campaign Foundation will issue a Kentucky report at that time as it relates to their services. And I guess in the interim, we're going to be working on trying to get as many agencies as possible to go through the certification, and also calling on the governor to, in regards to the celebration next June. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, Chairman, just one point of clarification. It would not simply be the National Human Rights Campaign Foundation coming in to report on this particular issue. Every year, they go to a different part of the country where there has been significant progress made in the arena of human rights, specific to LGBTQ causes. And so this really would be a national spotlight on Kentucky. And the draw would be, of course, that we've gone from one children's home to 6 children's homes participating in all children, all families certification. So it really would be an opportunity to have Kentucky portrayed in a positive spotlight. I jokingly said, Chairman Burst, that so many times my frustration is that apart from the Derby, if Kentucky is making national news, it's rarely positive.
Right.
And so I'm trying to add another positive story to the national news cycle, apart from the Derby, that Kentucky is not this stereotypical backwards state. And I just think it would be awesome. I don't know if it would be appropriate. Once again, I'm a new commissioner, but if it were possible for the commission to highlight or to recognize in some way these other child welfare providers and their stance on inclusive care, I just think that would be a phenomenal win as part of this celebration. I'm fairly confident. I've had multiple conversations with the commissioner of the Department of Community-Based Services. That's the state entity that oversees the nearly 9,000 plus kids in out-of-home care. I've had conversations with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, which oversees that particular state entity. And there is really positive excitement about this movement. So yeah, that's what my hope is that the commission would somehow show up in force and be willing to recognize these other child welfare providers.
Okay. Is there any questions from any other commissioners as relating to this? You know, personally, to me, this seems like something that we ought to engage in, and being true to our mission and being out in terms of trying to advance human and civil rights across the Commonwealth. Our getting involved in this, or at least promoting it and being a part of this celebration, would be an outstanding thing for us to do. Does anyone have any objections to us continuing to proceed? Hearing none. So Commissioner Worth and Terrence, I think what we probably need is for sort of what a written game plan, something very simple that we can rally around and that we can pulse periodically pointing to June of next year.
Understood, and thank you, Chairman.
Okay. The next item relates to a resolution that you got, I think was sent to you yesterday. I had a conversation maybe a month ago with Commissioner Fuentes regarding this, connected Terrence in to follow through on this, and there's a resolution that he has prepared. I'll let Commissioner Fuentes take us through that.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to Mr. Bors, and also for Mr. Sullivan for including this subject on the agenda. I understand that the goal or the mission of this commission is serving the Commonwealth, but taking into account that this state, Kentucky, is the home for a large Cuban American community. I just wanted I was looking for your support. I think that the best way I would prefer, it will help me out to read the draft that I sent to Mr. Sullivan, so you can understand and we can go straight to the point. So the Commonwealth of Kentucky houses a large Cuban American community. This entrepreneur and driving community has found freedom to vote, to express our opinion, to open a business, to educate our kids, to choose our religion or political affiliation, and many other privileges in this nation that we did in our homeland. More than 20,000 Cuban Americans are currently residing in the state of Kentucky. We love this Commonwealth and nation, and we are very grateful to be here. However, growing up in Cuba, we didn't plan on leaving our country. We didn't want to leave our family, friends, or neighborhoods that we grew up in. But we had to. We have to because of the dictatorial regime that has been ruling my country for more than 6 decades. This totalitarian system, with only one party, the Communist Party, has impoverished the Cuban nation. It has denied the rights to millions of Cubans to have a decent life due to the precarious economic situation. And it has separated thousands of families whose only option have been emigrate. By the way, around 25% of the Cuban population is living out of the country. A regime that regularly exercises repression, humiliation, and discrimination against anyone who expresses a desire for a political change. On July 11, the people of Cuba went to the streets asking for freedom. They were not asking for food or medicine. They were peaceful, asking to end the regime. Since then, our brothers and sisters in Cuba, most of which are Black and poor people, have been oppressed, terrorized, beaten, and jailed just because they publicly expresses their wishes for freedom. Hundreds of people are still detained or have disappeared solely for participating on the street protest. Many are facing summary trials without fair representation. We have members of our own Cuban community here in Kentucky that have relatives and close friends that are facing those unjust issues back on our country. Before the events on July 11, there were more than 150 political prisoners in Cuban jails, most of them Blacks, women, and young artists. Their crime was only advocating for a country that respects different opinions, individual freedoms, and diverse political parties. On behalf of the community and as a commissioner for the Kentucky Commission of Human Rights, I ask this commission for a statement or declaration condemning this violation of human rights in Cuba and demanding an end to the repression and political discrimination against individuals who think differently. So again, this is what I sent to Mr. Bors and also to Mr. Sullivan. Again, you know, my community is really sad about what's going on in Cuba because the COVID and also because the repression that they are facing right now. What I'm looking for is your support. I'm open for any question. Please let me know.
I have one question. Besides the resolution, what other actions are you wanting the commission to take or us as individuals that can support your efforts?
Thank you. Well, we have been trying to publish everything, the truth. We have been trying to put some pressure on every single leader, political leader, no matter if you are Republican, Democrat, a mayor, governor. We are trying to at least tell them the truth and at least making them to express or to condemn, you know, this situation. Because what has been happening is that nobody knows the truth. And as I said before, the reason why 20,000 Cubans are living in Kentucky is because there is a dictatorship in our land. We love this country, but the reason that we came here is because, you know, we wish to be in our home. So we have very limited action to do. We depend on the people inside of Cuba. But again, I feel with a moral obligation to be part of this commission and to be representing a huge Cuban community here in the Commonwealth, at least to express and to engage people to say, hey, this is something that isn't right. It's something that, you know, the human rights are, you know, have been violated. So again, I appreciate your question, but it's very limited the action that we can do here. At least, condemning or publishing or letting the people know what is going on in our country. Is it answer your question?
Are there any other questions from anyone else?
This is Jim Glenn. Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, you can.
Should we be contacting like Congress or the president and change the pressure that they're putting on the Cuban government? How should we prioritize those items?
Yes, we have been, we met with John Jarmuth. We have met with Mitch McConnell. Last month, we went to Washington. We were, in front of the White House doing a demonstration. Again, our options are very limited because, in Cuba, the government controls everything. By the way, yesterday, they just laid out a new law or regulation trying to punish, so anybody that can post anything on the internet. And again, what I think that is the best option that I have in my hands is, again, spread the truth and ask for the support and engagement, to everybody here in our community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, Commissioner Fuentes, that is a beautifully written resolution, and you have given me an education today regarding the number, the larger Cuban population in Kentucky that I simply was not aware of. So beautifully written work there, and I appreciate you bringing this to us. I fully support what you're doing.
Thank you for your support. Thank you for the but I have to say that, Terrence Sullivan was the person that put everything, on the final letter. So, but again, thank you for your support.
He's a rock star. I appreciate your work there, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or reactions from commissioners?
I have one comment, Terrence, about the letter, the resolution. On the last paragraph, the word presented is repeated. In the last paragraph, they say that a copy of this resolution be presented. Presented is actually twice.
Thank you. Let me fix that.
But other than that, I am really happy and really pleased with this document. And again, basically what I'm looking for your support. It's a privilege to be part of this commission, to be living here in this state. But again, as I said before, I feel with a moral obligation to at least do something for my brothers and sisters in Cuba. And also, people that have relatives and friends that are living here and they really are, struggling with this situation. So I really appreciate your support.
Any other questions or input? Okay, let me, in regards to the resolution, I think maybe I got two points and one nit. In the last whereas clause, we talk about what the Commonwealth of Kentucky stands for, and I think we can only speak to what the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights is. So I would strike the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and it would read the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights stands for equality for all. The other one, more substantive, is that this goes back to I think Commissioner Glenn's report comment is that we present a copy of the resolution, not just to the members of the Kentucky General Assembly and the governor of Kentucky, but to members of the Kentucky U.S. congressional delegation as well. And in the last whereas clause, in the now and therefore be it resolved, the first one, last line after families, I would place a comma, which is a nit. So if you all are comfortable with that, I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
There's a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that the resolution be adopted by this commission on this day. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? Resolution carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next item is from Commissioner Worth on conversion therapy, which is a hot topic and issue all across the country right now. Commissioner Worth? Did he drop off?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman Burris. I appreciate that. Terrence, are you able to share that screen there regarding the link that I sent you earlier this morning? So this is in relationship to a bill request that's still being put together by 5 sponsors. And this is currently, it's bill request number 49. And one of the 5 sponsors, so it's got bipartisan support. It's coming up hopefully for a vote with the upcoming General Assembly. It's got 5 sponsors. Currently, one of them is Representative Kim Banta. So Representative Kim Banta here in Northern Kentucky, I've had multiple conversations where specifically about the work that we were trying to do around the child welfare providers and inclusive care, which I just discussed with you previously. One of the things that she shared with me was that at one point she was asked to sign a letter of support for the one child welfare provider refusing to sign its state contract, but she signed it without knowing all of the backstory that one particular children's home had in relationship to termination of employment simply based upon sexual orientation, et cetera. And so we've had multiple conversations with Northern Kentucky legislators around the topic of inclusive care. One of the discussion points that came up during a recent meeting with our Northern Kentucky legislators was around bill request number 49. And what it would effectively do would be to ban so-called conversion therapy. And basically, in a nutshell, so-called conversion therapy is a process whereby specifically young people, adolescents, are tried to be talked out of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. It's been refuted by every major medical organization in the country. We are Johnny-come-lately to this parade as the Commonwealth of Kentucky in banning it throughout the state. Many cities, including my own city of Covington, has banned the practice. There's been other local cities and municipalities that have followed suit, but there's nothing been done in terms of the entire Commonwealth banning the practice. Once again, we're Johnny-come-lately to this parade. Many states have already done it years ago, but it still represents a win for inclusion, diversity. And so where I'm specifically going with this, Representative Banta has said that she needs support as one of the sponsors to make sure it actually gets put up for a vote with the General Assembly. And so I'm wondering what kind of mechanism, sorry about my cuckoo clock, but I'm wondering what kind of mechanism might be at our disposal to recommend that bill request number 49 move forward for discussion and vote with the upcoming General Assembly.
You have any suggestions of what that would be?
You know, I'm wondering, could it be something as simple as the resolution that we saw Commissioner Fuentes use? Would that be something would that tool be at our disposal, recommending to the House and Senate leadership that this bill move forward? Or would it be more appropriate for a business letter from the executive director and the chair of the commission to go to House and Senate leadership? I personally like the resolution idea if others are supportive of that.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I'd certainly support a resolution.
Terrence, you can take that down so I can see people. Thank you. Any other commissioners? Thoughts or response? So it's been suggested that we send a resolution in that regard, in regards to that. Can I have a motion and a second that the commission draft a resolution in support of Bill Request 49 and send it to the General Assembly? Okay, is there a second? Judge Stringer, second. Other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying or raising your hand so I can see it. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. So Terrence and Commissioner Worth and I will work on the resolution to get that done.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks, fellow commissioners. I appreciate that.
And that covers all of the items that were on our agenda for this meeting. I guess the next, at least subject matter on there is suggestions for agenda topics for our next commission meeting, which is in September. I think Terrence, you told me that September last year had a very, very hefty number of cases that the commission had to review. And I'm contemplating that September this year will be the same way.
It won't be nearly as many as last year. Today we had more, so we have fewer. I don't remember the exact number that we'll need to close. And I don't know if Aaron is still on here, but it won't be nearly as substantial as last year.
Okay. And the reason
I was just gonna say we only need, I think, 30 cases.
Well, don't restrict the number of cases you bring to close just because I'm talking about the number. If we need to close, 60 of them, let's close 60 of them, that. But the only reason I was asking about that in terms of length of agenda, one of the talked about coming out of the audit that was done or the review or whatever was done was, and the executive director of the Lexington Fair Housing has asked for an opportunity to make a presentation to this commission in terms of what they do and their interface with us, which I think would be good. But I don't want to schedule him if we're not going to be able to give him the time that I think is necessary. And I know there will be some questions from commissioners to him in that regard. But we'll play it by ear in terms of where we need to go. Are there any other agenda topics that you would like to hear, discuss, or be made aware of in upcoming meetings? Commissioner Cheney.
I don't know that this would necessarily be an agenda topic. I just wanted to ask if we are seeing an uptick in housing related complaints due to increased evictions.
We are seeing a ton. There is an uptick, I would say, every other housing call that we have or inquiry that we have has to do with an eviction or information about the eviction process. And unfortunately, those are not cases that fall within our jurisdiction. Some folks think that if they can convince us to file a case on their behalf, that in itself will stop an eviction. And we have to tell them that filing a case with us does not stop that process. But yes, to answer your question, there is an uptick.
Are you seeing perhaps particularly from the Louisville area by chance?
Actually, no. There are quite a few from Louisville, and we refer those cases to the Louisville Metro Human Relations. So most of the cases that I'm dealing with directly are coming from across the state. And I would say there's not a portion of the state that's not been affected with an uptick in eviction cases.
Well, but I guess one of my concerns is it's very disproportionate. If you look at a map of Louisville and you look at the eviction judgments, and I can share this, I'll send this to share. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of them are occurring in the West End. And you look at the map of the judgments, and it literally just makes you want to throw up because it's very clear. And so I just wanted to ask.
As a resident of West Louisville, I understand that and see that. And a lot of just from talking to other homeowners and landlords, a lot of the eviction that we're seeing in West Louisville is not all COVID related or non-payment related. Some of it has to do with the fact that the housing market is booming and people are looking for properties closer to downtown. And one way to address that issue, a lucrative way to address that issue, is to start selling homes instead of renting them.
So now we're looking at additional gentrification.
You could say that. I won't, but you can.
Okay. I don't want to veer too far off this. Thank you very much. I appreciate the additional information.
Okay, any other agenda topic? Okay. You know, if you don't, if you know, you don't necessarily have to come up with any today. If there are any that come across that you think about, if you send an email to Terrence or me or both of us, we'll work to get that on the agenda.
Hey, Chairman Burson, may I ask a quick question that could possibly be a follow-up item for something that we talked about today?
Go ahead.
So, and it's really a question for Commissioner Cheney about a conversation that we had. And Commissioner Cheney, you were talking about ARPA funding with me recently, and about how some of those ARPA funds could be devoted around the topic of housing insecurity, potential for homelessness, et cetera. Would any of those federal funds qualify for the work that this commission is doing? Noting the fact that we wanted to open up these community foundation accounts, would there, and I don't know if there's any precedent for this, but would the commission ever be in a situation that it could align with some type of grant writer to go after those kind of funds that would then be deposited into these community foundations? You don't have to answer that question necessarily right now, but I just wonder if that's something we could explore as a follow-up topic, if you thought that it has any merit.
So I think, Rick, the quicker route is that I believe Kentucky in total is receiving something on the order of 3 something billion dollars. And that'll be in two tranches. One should have already been received. One will be received next year. And I think the best thing to do is to have a conversation with the governor's office about the potential for some additional funding to the commission.
Yeah, I just think that maybe there, and I know that is a something that would require some pretty immediate attention. I was just hoping that you might say that the Kentucky Human Rights Commission might be an appropriate use of some of those funds, and therefore we would have some money to put into these community foundations that Terrence is investigating.
Well, note that as it relates to those funds coming into the Commonwealth of Kentucky is that the legislature took control of all of those dollars. And whereas the governor has little or no discretion as to where he can put those funds. And then they put a significant portion of it into the rainy day fund.
Understood.
But I like your idea.
I'm just looking for any money under any rock we can find to help us.
Right. Yeah, I can tell you in terms of the Metro Louisville's priorities or list of where they're going to spend the money, going back to Commissioner Cheney in terms of homelessness and housing, is on their list of I think the 4 areas in which they're talking about they're going to spend money here.
The other thing to keep in mind too, Rick, and we can have, I don't know, chair wants the commission to take a deeper look, but there are the local fiscal recovery funds that go directly to jurisdictions and are not subject to control of the state legislature. So don't want to get too far into the weeds, but certainly it merits a follow-up conversation.
Maybe we could add that then as a follow-up item, Chairman, unless that would be too long to wait. I know that we got to strike while the iron is hot with some of these cities and counties that have these funds to disperse.
Yeah, and they're working pretty quickly on it. At least the reports that I guess that I've seen, at least the news count or accounts of what they have decided in terms of what they're spending money on is they're moving pretty quickly. So, the only way to do that again is municipality by municipality or county by county to see what you can come up with.
Chair, and I'm sorry if I'm prolonging the meeting, but I just don't want to miss that opportunity to grab some funding if we could. Is it ever been a practice? Is it a precedent that this commission could employ an outside entity such as a grant writer or a professional fundraising company to investigate perhaps the top 5 municipalities, cities, or counties that this commission should investigate as a potential for funding?
Well, I like your idea. Our only problem is we don't have funds to be able to engage the people who do what we need to have done. So I think it really is incumbent on I think on each of us in terms of in our individual community what we're able to push and do or to make happen. Again, say in Metro Louisville, several organizations have been involved with areas and where to spend the money, and so we now narrowed it down to 4 areas, but no allocation among those 4 areas in terms of where it is. So I think we just have to be advocates in our individual communities in terms of what's taking place. Okay. Any other issue, comment, or announcement before we adjourn? Okay, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Jim Glenn, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to that? Yeah, I see Commissioner Stringer. So all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, thank all of you for a great meeting. Very, very substantive. We covered a lot of topic, a lot of ground, and I think we're making a lot of progress as we move and go forward. Thanks to Terrence in terms of keeping us aware of issues, bringing to our innovative ways of doing things and going forward. So look forward to seeing all of you next month. I know what I forgot to ask you, Terrence, is the staff back? You know, some state offices have gone back to work in their offices. Where are we as in terms of the commission staff?
So for the most part, we're back in the office. Everyone has the option now to return full-time to the office. We just recently updated it to expand the mask policy back in place for when you're walking through public space and traveling outside of your office. But other than that, we are all back, and some people are allowed, especially if there's some concerns or whatever, as long as they can work, they're still being able to work on that varying schedule. But for the most part, we have people here every day now.
Okay. Well, I just asked that so as we think toward the September meeting, whether we'll be in a position to do in person or continue with the virtual meetings, but we'll work on that and see how the environment unfolds in terms of creating an environment where we can meet in person as opposed to virtually. But again, thank all of you for a great meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your input. And as always, if there are any issues or things that you have, please get those to the executive director or get them to me. Reach out to me. So thank you and have a good rest of your day.